When we think about crime, we often picture criminals as sort of fixed. Like, once someone is a criminal, that's just who they are. But is that really true?
That's a huge question, and for a long time, criminology kind of wrestled with it.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into something that really shook things up, the life course theory of criminal behavior. We're going to unpack how this theory changed everything by focusing on change over time, drawing on some really fascinating research.
Yeah, the mission here is to figure out what actually influences someone's relationship with crime across their entire life.
And the first big jolt to the old way of thinking came way back, didn't it? In the 1950s.
That's right. Sheldon and Eleanor Glue, they did this incredible longitudinal study, followed about 1,000 young men, starting when they were just 10 up to 17.
The 1,000 kids.
Yeah, and what they found was, honestly, pretty shocking for the time. Even the kids who were highly delinquent, well, their criminal activity often dropped off significantly as they got older.
Decreased.
Plummeted in many cases. It really flew in the face of that once a criminal, always a criminal idea. It cracked that foundation.
So the big takeaway from the Glukes was, what? That this connection to crime isn't set in stone.
Exactly. It's dynamic. It changes with age, with life experiences. It really makes you think about how much people evolve, doesn't it?
It does, and how that applies even here. But I imagine that wasn't just instantly accepted.
Oh, absolutely not. It was a huge shift in thinking. Before the Glukes, most theories didn't really pay much attention to change over time. They were focused on the now.
Right. The older theories, classical, biological, social, they were all about the snapshot, weren't they?
Pretty much. Let's say we have this guy, Joe.
Okay.
A classical theorist might ask, what was Joe thinking right when he robbed that bank? Biological theories might look at his mental state, maybe, during a break-in.
And social theories would look at his environment, like his gang ties when he hit the convenience store.
Exactly. All focused on the time and place of the crime, the immediate stuff.
But life course theory, it took a step back.
A big step back. Instead of just Joe now, it asked about Joe's development. How did his childhood, maybe a tough relationship with his parents or getting bullied, how did that shape him going into his teens?
And it didn't stop there, right? It looked forward, too.
Yes. What happens later? If Joe gets married in his 20s or lands a really good job, could those big changes completely alter his path, his likelihood of committing crime?
So the core idea is, we're not the same person from childhood to adulthood.
Precisely. And if we change, then our relationship with crime can change, too. It's not stable.
Okay, so the Glutes planted the seed, then things picked up again later. I'm thinking maybe the 70s.
Yeah, by the 1970s, there was growing criticism. People were pushing back against this idea of criminals and non-criminals as totally separate, unchanging groups.
Like a fixed label.
Right. And life course theory really emerged to challenge that. It asked, okay, does someone's relationship with crime change? And if so, how?
If that idea of change was such a big shift, what's like the clearest evidence we see for it? There's that pattern, the age crime curve.
Ah, yes. Terry Moffat's work, starting back in the 70s with that big New Zealand study, the Dunedin study, was crucial here.
What was she looking at initially?
Her hypothesis was about early life, that maybe deficits, problems in childhood or pre-adolescence could predict who became delinquent later.
So she tested kids.
She did neuropsychological tests on 13-year-olds and then followed them, tested them again as they aged.
And what turned up?
Well, by the 1990s, she had this really striking finding. Those 13-year-olds who showed some neuropsychological issues and were involved in, minor delinquency.
Yeah.
By age 18, for many of them, that delinquency had slowed way down significantly.
So crime tends to peak in the teens and then drop off.
That's the essence of the age crime curve. It's one of the most consistent findings in all of criminology. Crime rates generally decline quite a bit after the late teenage years.
Interesting. Did Moffat figure out why, or if everyone follows that same curve?
She dug into that, definitely. She actually proposed two main groups of offenders based on this pattern. First, the adolescence limited group.
Okay, limited to adolescence.
Pretty much. Their deviant behavior is mostly just during their teenage years. They didn't really have antisocial behavior as kids.
And they're the ones driving that curve downwards.
Largely, yes. As they mature, get more responsibilities, their offending tends to just fade out. It's kind of a phase for them.
But not for everyone. What's the other group?
That's the life course persistent group. Now, this is a much smaller group, tiny, actually, but they're really important.
Why is that?
Because they start antisocial behavior very young, and they just keep going throughout their lives. They account for a huge amount of crime, disproportionately so.
And do they look different in those early tests?
Moffat found they often did have higher rates of those neuropsychological deficits. She was measuring things like poorer memory, more impulsivity.
So Moffat gives us these two paths. Then others built on this. I remember Sampson and Lobb.
Robert Sampson and John Lobb, yes. In the early 90s, they did something remarkable. They went back to the original Gloof data from the 50s.
Same guys.
The very same. And they didn't just reanalyze it, they actually found and re-interviewed many of the original participants later in life. Talk about long-term data.
Wow. What did they add to the picture?
Their work led to what they called the age-graded theory of informal social control back in '93. It supports the age crime curve.
Yeah, crime tends to drop with age.
But there was something else, right? A key concept.
Yes, the idea of turning points.
Turning points. I like that. What does it mean?
These are significant, sometimes sudden life changes. Think getting married, finding a stable career, maybe military service.
Things that change your routine, your responsibilities.
Exactly. Sampson and Loab argued these turning points can fundamentally change someone's path, their connection to crime. It helps explain why so many of those young offenders seem to just stop as they hit adulthood.
So it's not just about early life.
Right. Their conclusion was that crime is shaped by both early experiences and these crucial later turning points. It's a combination. Okay, looking at the theory overall, it seems pretty compelling. What are its main strengths, logically speaking?
Well, you can see why it's popular. It accepts that people aren't stuck. Behavior can be encouraged or discouraged over time.
That considers a lot of factors.
It does. Parenting, school, friends, jobs, marriage. It tries to bring all these different influences together. It feels quite well-rounded, integrating insights from various angles.
It sounds very comprehensive. But are there weaknesses? Criticisms?
Oh, yes. A major one is about choice, individual agency.
Meaning?
Does the theory pay enough attention to the fact that people make choices regardless of what life throws at them?
Right. Like a classical theorist might jump in and say, hold on, even with all those experiences, deciding to commit a crime is still a choice.
Exactly. And that helps explain why two people with really similar backgrounds, similar life events, don't necessarily end up on the same path regarding crime. One might offend, the other doesn't. Why? Choice plays a role.
Did the theory try to account for that later on?
Lobb and Sampson did address it more. They suggested turning points can work in different ways. Sometimes it's almost unconscious.
How so?
Like, Joe gets a good job, the structure of his life changes, new routines, new people. He just sort of drifts away from shoplifting because his environment is different. It wasn't necessarily a big conscious decision.
Ah, okay. But it can be conscious.
Definitely. Joe might think, okay, I've got this career prospect. I can't risk getting arrested now. He actively decides to change his behavior, go straight to protect that future. So it acknowledges both structural shifts and active decisions.
That makes sense. So they had the theory, they refined it.
Yeah.
How did they actually test it? You mentioned Sampson and Law went back to the Gluck data.
They did, and it was incredibly thorough. They used the Gluck's original data, tracking the men at ages like 10, 13, then 25, 32, 45.
It's a really long time.
But then they tracked them down again and re-interviewed them at age 70.
70. That's over 50 years of data on the same people.
Unprecedented, really. And the findings, they strongly backed up the theory. Turning points, getting married, having stable employment were significantly linked to lower crime rates later in life.
Solid evidence. Any other studies add to this, maybe complicating it a bit?
Yeah, there's nuance. For instance, Jordana, Cernkovich, and Rudolph pointed out in 2002 that it's not just about the opportunity for change, like getting married.
What else matters?
The person's decision to actually grab onto that opportunity. So Joe getting married helps, but only if he also decides, okay, I'm committing to this, I'm changing my ways.
So the turning point opens a door, but the person has to choose to walk through it.
That's a good way to put it. And sometimes they found the decision to stop offending might even come first, and then positive things like finding a partner happen afterwards, reinforcing the change. It's complex.
Okay, so we have this well-supported theory.
Mm.
What's the so what? How does this actually help us in the real world with crime prevention?
That's where it gets really practical. The big message is crime prevention can't be a one-size-fits-all approach.
Because people are at different stages.
Exactly. You need to tailor strategies based on age, life stage, what's going on in their social world.
So for young people, what's the focus?
Early life stuff.
Yeah.
Family dynamics are huge. Poor supervision, weak parent-child bonds, conflict, school connection, peer groups too.
So prevention looks like?
Strengthening families, parent training maybe. building good peer relationships, getting kids engaged in school or community stuff, mentoring programs, youth outreach, things that build those protective bonds early on.
Makes sense. But the theory says it's not only about early intervention.
Right.
What about adults?
Right. For adults, the focus shifts more towards those turning points, those hooks for change Samson and Lobb talked about.
Like jobs and marriage again.
Yes. Stable work, good relationships, maybe military service, things that provide structure, responsibility, and new social ties. These can really help people move away from crime.
And the flip side. Things that might increase risk in adulthood.
Definitely. A marriage breaking down, losing a job, and staying unemployed, a major personal loss. These disruptions can destabilize things and sometimes lead to an increase in crime, even for someone who wasn't offending before.
So for adults, interventions should target those areas.
Yeah, things like employment assistance programs, counseling for relationship problems, support for substance abuse recovery, helping people navigate those potentially difficult transitions.
So a really crucial point here seems to be that help can make a difference at many points in life, not just childhood.
Absolutely. You can intervene early, yes, but you can also intervene later. Someone might avoid crime as a kid, but run into trouble as an adult due to disruptions.
Or someone might have been delinquent as a youth, but with the right turning point, can still desist later on.
Exactly. There are multiple opportunities across the lifespan to nudge things in a positive direction.
So wrapping this up, life course theory really did change the game. It moved us from thinking of crime as this static label.
To seeing it as a dynamic journey, shaped by early life, yes, but also by these critical turning points later on. It's a developmental view.
It really emphasizes change and potential, which leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? If someone's relationship with crime can be so fluid, so subject to change over their life,
Hmm.
what does that really mean for how society defines criminality? And maybe how could our justice systems better recognize and even leverage these turning points, not just for punishment, but for real positive change for individuals and maybe whole communities?
That's a deep question to ponder. How do we build systems that acknowledge this potential for change?
Something for all of us to think about. Thanks for unpacking that today.
My pleasure. It's a fascinating area.